Parents decided to miss my wedding because Golden Child's sister hosted a huge lunch. Growing up as the younger sister, I've always felt like I was in the shadow of my older sister, who's 29 now. From the start, it seemed like she got the lion's share of attention and praise from everyone in our family. She was the firstborn, the older daughter, and in many ways, it felt like she got the better end of the stick in pretty much everything. For the longest time, I tried to convince myself that maybe I was just imagining things. Maybe I was just being too sensitive or seeing conflicts where there weren't any. But as the years rolled by, all these little moments of disparity between how we were treated started to add up. It became increasingly clear that my feelings weren't just figments of my imagination. I wasn't making it up. My sister really was the favored child. It didn't matter what the situation was. She always seemed to get the benefit of the doubt. Even if she did something totally out there, something you'd think would definitely not fly with our parents, somehow, she'd still come out smelling like roses. On the other hand, I felt like I was constantly under scrutiny, and no matter what I did, it just wasn't good enough. Living in that kind of environment, where you feel constantly undervalued, really started to wear on me. I knew I had to do something drastic if I was ever going to find my own peace of mind. So, as soon as I could, at 18, I moved out. That distance, that physical space away from the constant comparisons and judgments, it did wonders for my mental health. For the first time, I could breathe, think, and just be myself without feeling like I was being pitted against my sister. But just moving out didn't magically fix everything. Despite the distance, my sister seemed to carry on this campaign to tarnish my image with our parents. She went as far as to tell them I was involved with drugs and heavy drinking, none of which was true. The worst part? My parents believed her. They didn't even pause to consider my side of the story. They didn't ask if I wanted to defend myself, and when I suggested taking a drug test to prove my innocence, they didn't care. They had already made up their minds. That was a huge blow. It's tough when your own parents take someone else's word over yours without even a second thought. That whole ordeal just cemented my decision to keep my distance. So I went no contact with my parents for about 2 years. Cutting them out was not an easy decision, but it was necessary for my well-being. During that time, I really started to put my life together without the cloud of family drama hanging over me. I focused on my career, built a life with my boyfriend, and generally did things that made me happy, things that I couldn't have done if I'd stayed entangled in all that negativity. Living independently, I found happiness and success on my own terms. It felt liberating to make decisions without worrying about being unfavorably compared to my sister or dealing with unjust accusations. It was like I could finally enjoy life without the weight of unfair expectations and constant scrutiny. In those years of no contact, I grew a lot as a person. I strengthened other relationships, made new friends, and most importantly, I learned a lot about myself, about my strengths, my resilience, and how much I could achieve when I wasn't constantly being put down. I wasn't on speaking terms with my parents. We hadn't talked for months. But then I got this news that really shook me. My dad was hospitalized. Despite everything that had gone down between us, I felt a strong pull to be there for him. I've always believed that you shouldn't treat people poorly just because they might have treated you poorly. Instead, I try to treat people the way I aspire to be, regardless of their actions. So I decided it was my duty as a daughter to show up for my dad in his time of need. During his hospital stay, I reached out and we slowly started talking again. It wasn't easy, but it felt necessary. It was like we were cautiously mending the fragile threads of our relationship. My sister, however, wasn't thrilled about this at all. She seemed wary, maybe even a bit threatened by our reconciliation. But I was firm about my decision to reconnect with our parents. I was standing my ground this time. As things started to look a bit better between us, my parents opened up about another issue. They were facing some financial troubles. Maybe it wasn't the smartest move, but I decided to help them out as much as I could. In my head, I thought that by stepping up where my sister had stepped back, maybe they'd start to see me as an equal, not just the second choice. This wasn't just about money for me. It was about proving a point, about showing that I could be relied on when it counted, and it kind of worked. Whenever my sister tried to stir things up again, my parents would actually defend me, pointing out how she wasn't there for them when they really needed her. It felt good to know that they appreciated my efforts, even if part of me knew they were probably scared of pushing me away and losing the financial help I was giving them. I knew if they crossed a line again, I wouldn't hesitate to step back, and they knew it too. They needed the help, and they couldn't afford to mess things up with me this time. Some might think I was being manipulative or that I was a bad person for holding the financial aid over their heads. But honestly, I was just tired of being treated like I didn't matter. I was willing to do what it took to change that dynamic, to make sure I was valued and respected in my family. Amid all this family drama, there was a bright spot: my relationship with my boyfriend. We were going strong, and after celebrating our 4th anniversary together, he proposed. I said yes. It felt like things were finally turning around for me personally. My life was on an upswing. I was repairing my relationship with my parents, my career was going well, and now I was engaged to the love of my life. We started planning our wedding, and everything seemed almost perfect. Well, almost perfect except for one thing: my sister. She couldn't hide her surprise, almost disapproval, that I was getting married so young, especially when she herself wasn't even married yet. Her reaction was a bit of a downer, but I wasn't going to let it dampen my spirits. Everything was lined up beautifully for the future. I had managed to establish a somewhat symbiotic relationship with my parents, where we were all getting something we needed from each other. My job was rewarding, my personal life was blooming, and I was excited about what lay ahead. My sister's feelings about my marriage were just another hurdle, but not one that could stop me from moving forward and embracing my happiness. My sister has never really had what you'd call a stable relationship. None of her romantic ventures have lasted more than a year, so it's no big surprise that she's not married yet. But despite her own lackluster love life, she had this bizarre idea that because she wasn't married, I shouldn't get married either. Honestly, her logic felt like complete nonsense to me, so I just decided to ignore it. I had my own life to live, and I was excited about my upcoming wedding. The wedding date was set for a weekend, to make sure everyone we cared about could attend without too much hassle. I even sent out invitations to my sister and my parents because, despite all the ups and downs, I really wanted my family to be there. It meant a lot to me to have them share in one of the biggest days of my life. Fast forward to last Saturday, the big day. And guess what? My parents didn't show up. At first, you might think something serious must have happened, right? Something urgent that prevented them from coming. But no, nothing like that. The truth hit me like a ton of bricks when I didn't see them at the ceremony. They didn't show up because my sister decided to throw a lunch at her place on the same day as my wedding, and my parents thought it was more important to support her than to attend their youngest daughter's wedding. I can't even begin to describe how that felt, waiting there, at my own wedding, hoping they'd walk through the door any minute. I held off the ceremony start for 30 minutes, clinging to some hope. Then my mom finally showed me a social media post from my sister. That's how I found out where my parents really were. The post showed them all smiling and having a great time, as if they didn't have a care in the world, as if they didn't just skip their daughter's wedding. It was like a punch to the gut seeing them so happy next to her, treating her like she was their only daughter. Right then and there, I made a decision. I was done. Done helping them, done hoping things would change. I decided I was 7 years too late in cutting them off completely, but better late than never. After the wedding, once the guests had left and I had some time to reflect and gather my thoughts, I sent my parents a message. I told them in no uncertain terms that I no longer considered them my parents. They had made their choice, clearly favoring my sister time and again, even though I had always been there when my sister wasn't. They had refused to show me the basic respect of attending my wedding, and in doing so, they lost my respect in return. Since that message, they've tried to reach out, sending excuses, trying to justify their actions. But I'm standing firm. I don't plan on softening my stance or pretending everything is okay. They made their choice, and now they have to live with it. However, part of me can't help but wonder if I'm being too harsh. It's a strange feeling, knowing I'm finally standing up for myself, but also questioning if I'm the one being unreasonable here. Am I the a-hole for cutting them off after they repeatedly showed they didn't value me? Or am I just overthinking this whole situation? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Now, fought the top comments before the update. Opie and not the a-hole. Honestly, you are my hero because I'm in a situation similar to yours, with a family that is blatant about their favoritism. And honestly, if I could leave, I would do the same thing that you're doing. Not the a-hole. They do not deserve to be called mom and dad if they're not willing to be a mom and dad to you. Anyone who thinks otherwise can take a long walk off a short pier. Update 1. Hey everyone. First off, I just want to say a huge thanks for all the support. It's been a whirlwind, and having you all by my side has meant the world to me. Sorry for the delay in updating you. I was off on my honeymoon, soaking up some much-needed joy after all the drama. I just got back yesterday, and I felt it was time to fill you in on everything and sort through my thoughts. Coming back to everything, I still strongly feel that I'm not in the wrong here, but hearing you all confirm that really helps. It's one thing to believe in your own actions, but having that external validation, it's comforting, really reassuring. Since the wedding, and after making the tough decision to cut ties, I've been pretty much ghosting my entire family. They haven't stopped trying to reach out, though. My inbox is full of messages from them: texts, emails, social media, you name it. My sister and my parents keep insisting they did nothing wrong and that I'm just overreacting to the whole situation. Honestly, it's exhausting just to see their names pop up on my phone. The financial aspect is another sore point. My parents are especially upset that I've stopped helping them out with money. They're well aware that my sister isn't going to step in and cover for them. She's never had the means or perhaps the inclination to help financially. They took it for granted that I would always be there, wallet open, regardless of how they treated me. But that's not the case anymore. I've shut that door, and I plan to keep it closed. The reality is, I hate that I've been put in this position. I hate that they've made me feel like I need to choose between my own peace and their happiness. For years, it felt like I was just a resource to them, not a daughter or a sister who deserved respect and love. That kind of realization stings. It cuts deep. Moving forward, I'm not planning on being friendly or reconciling. Some might say that's harsh, but sometimes you have to be firm to protect your own well-being. You have to draw the line somewhere, and for me, that line was watching them choose a casual lunch over my once-in-a-lifetime wedding day. It's a strange mix of emotions to handle, especially as a newlywed. This should be one of the happiest times of my life. And while it is in many ways thanks to my incredible partner, it's also shadowed by this family drama. Yet despite the bittersweet feelings, I'm learning a lot about myself, my boundaries, and what I need to do to maintain my mental health. I really appreciate you guys for sticking with me through this mess. Knowing I have a community that supports me and sees my side of things is invaluable. It makes the tough decisions a little easier to stand by. So thank you truly. You've helped more than you know. Update 2. So it's been about 3 days since my last update. Things have been pretty hectic. Yesterday, something unexpected happened. My mother showed up at my apartment. I really wasn't in the mood to deal with any family drama, especially not hers. But according to my neighbors, she had been waiting outside for hours by the time I got home. They mentioned seeing her pacing back and forth, looking pretty anxious. Given that she'd been out there for so long, I figured maybe she had something important to say, or maybe she was ready to make some amends. So with a heavy sigh, I decided to let her in. In hindsight, that probably wasn't the best decision. No sooner had the door closed behind her than she launched into a tirade. She started by accusing me of being a massive jerk for painting them as the villains. Her words stung, especially because they twisted the truth so much. She continued, saying that just because I'm married now doesn't mean I should forget about my real family. According to her, I should still prioritize my parents and sister, treat them like my family. I couldn't hold back. I told her that her idea of family would hold some weight if they had ever treated me like I was actually part of the family. But that wasn't my reality. Every time I needed them, I was treated like an afterthought, like I was useless. Her showing up now, pretending to care, it felt so fake, so forced. Why now? Why pretend to care when every action they'd taken showed the opposite? I also brought up the wedding day, the day she and my dad chose my sister over me. I tried to make her see how much that hurt me, how their actions spoke louder than any words could. But it was like talking to a brick wall. My mom was so entrenched in her own perspective that she couldn't see how her actions could be seen as hurtful or wrong. It was frustrating and sad to witness. She genuinely didn't believe she had done anything wrong. Instead, she insisted I was the one overreacting. The conversation was going nowhere. I was getting nowhere with her, and her refusal to acknowledge any fault was just making things worse. Finally, I'd had enough. I told her that if she couldn't come to terms with the fact that she had consistently chosen my sister over me, and if she wasn't ready to make some real changes in how she treated me, then she shouldn't bother contacting me again. Her response? She called me crazy. That hurt, but I was so done. I stood my ground and told her that if that's truly what she believed, she should leave and not come back. The door closed behind her with a finality that felt like it could be the end of our relationship for good. It was a tough, emotionally charged confrontation, and after she left, I felt a mix of relief and sadness. It's hard cutting ties like that, feeling like your own mother doesn't get you or even wants to understand you. But at the same time, there's relief in standing up for yourself, in setting boundaries that protect your peace. Now, I'm just trying to process everything, figure out where I stand and how to move forward from here. It's not easy, but I believe it's necessary. So, am I the a-hole for handling it this way? Or am I just finally taking the necessary steps to protect my own well-being? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Update 3. Hey everyone, thanks so much for hanging in there with me. It's been a minute since I last updated y'all. I really appreciate all the support you've given me, especially after I decided to cut off my parents. Your encouragement means a ton during this tough time. So, here's what's been going down since we last chatted. I haven't spoken to my mom since our big blow-up. Things ended pretty badly, and we haven't patched things up. My dad has been trying to get in touch with me too, but I've been ignoring his calls and messages, just not ready to dive back into that mess yet. And then there's my sister. She actually hit me up on social media telling me to grow up and stop overreacting. According to her, the lunch she hosted on my wedding day was super important, and she feels that family members sometimes need to make sacrifices for each other. I mean, really? On my wedding day? I shot back the same thing I told my mom. I've been super clear and consistent with all of them. I'm all for having a healthy relationship with my parents, but it's gotta be a two-way street. They need to show they're willing to make an effort too. I can't be the only one trying to make things work. It's just too exhausting. And honestly, it's not fair. So, unless they're ready to step up and put in some real work to fix things, I'm standing my ground. I'm not going to keep carrying all the emotional weight of our relationship on my shoulders. It's about time they started pulling their weight too. In the meantime, life's been moving along. I've been focusing on myself, my own well-being, and spending time with people who actually support and uplift me. It's not been easy, especially knowing that my family situation is so strained, but I'm trying to stay positive and keep moving forward. Again, thanks for all the love and support. It helps more than you know. Let's see how things go from here. We'll keep you all posted. Update 4. Ever since I moved out and started my independent life, I've been doing my best to keep a healthy distance from my family's chaos. Unfortunately, my sister and my parents seem to have made it their mission to drag me back into the old dynamics we had, the ones I've been working so hard to escape. Starting with my sister, who recently decided to reach out, not with an olive branch, but with a demand for a substantial amount of money. Apparently, she has come up with a business idea and concluded that because I have managed to carve out a stable life for myself, I should fund her venture. Her argument? Since I've built a career and life despite the lack of support from our parents, it's only fair that I support her now. The entitlement didn't just stop there. When I told her no, she didn't just accept it. She actually threatened to take legal action against me, claiming that some of my earnings should rightfully belong to her because, according to her, our parents diverted funds from her college savings to help me get on my feet, a blatant lie. The conversation quickly spiraled from bad to worse. She tried to manipulate me by saying that if I didn't invest in her business, it would be a clear sign that I was still holding on to past grudges and hadn't really moved on. This twisted logic was her way of guilt-tripping me into complying with her demands. As if dealing with my sister wasn't enough, my parents have thrown their weight behind her, echoing her claims and demands. They've been painting a picture where it's my duty to step up and help stabilize the family finances by backing my sister's project. During a particularly tense phone call, they laid it on thick, telling me about all the sacrifices they had made for me over the years, and how helping my sister was the least I could do to show my gratitude. They even went as far as to say that by helping her, I would be helping the entire family find stability. Their arguments were rich, considering the years of favoritism and uneven support they had shown us. It was clear they were trying to leverage any sense of familial obligation I felt to get what they wanted. The sheer audacity of their demands was staggering. They seemed to have forgotten the years of neglect and disparity in how they treated us, focusing only on what they believed I owed them now. The discussions with my parents didn't end with the phone calls. They began sending emails and messages, each one more pressing than the last. They tried to paint a picture of dire financial straits, hinting that their situation was so bad that soon they might have no choice but to move in with me. Yes, they suggested that moving in together would be good for us, a chance to mend our strained relationship and live as one happy family under the same roof. This suggestion was almost laughable if it weren't so tragically manipulative. The thought of living together, after all the effort I'd put into establishing boundaries and building my own life, was unimaginable. It felt as though they were trying to encroach on the peace and stability I had fought so hard to create. They described this move as a mutual benefit, a way for us to reconnect and heal old wounds. But I knew better. It was a last-ditch effort to maintain control and insert themselves back into my life on a daily basis. I found myself grappling with feelings of guilt and frustration. The part of me that still felt connected to them, the daughter in me, felt a pull to help, to make things better. But the rational part of me knew that this was a dangerous path. Every time I had given in to their demands in the past, it had only led to more heartache and manipulation. It was a pattern that I could not allow to repeat. During all this, I've been leaning heavily on my friends and my partner, who have been incredibly supportive. They remind me that I'm not obligated to fix my family's financial problems or succumb to their emotional manipulations. They've helped me see that standing my ground is not only necessary but healthy. So here I am, once again affirming my boundaries, trying to navigate the turbulent waters of familial obligations while maintaining my sanity. It's been a draining experience, and each interaction leaves me a little more weary than the last. But I am resolute in my decision to not give in to their demands. To anyone reading this who finds themselves in a similar situation, know that it's okay to choose your well-being over familial pressure. It's okay to say no, and it's okay to protect your peace, even if it means making tough decisions that others might not understand. Thanks for letting me vent and for all your support. It's been invaluable in helping me stay strong. What do you think about this situation? Am I handling this the right way, or is there a different approach I should consider? Your feedback and shared experiences are always appreciated. Update 5? Hello again, everyone. As always, your support has been a lifeline during these turbulent times with my family. It seems each time I write, the situation has grown increasingly complex, and this update is no exception. Since we last talked, the dynamics have intensified with my family, particularly with my sister and parents. I had hoped that establishing clear boundaries would help them understand where I stood, but it appears to have had the opposite effect, emboldening them to push even harder against those boundaries. The latest development came in the form of an email from my parents that was more forceful and demanding than anything I've previously encountered. They've concocted a detailed claim that they are entitled to a portion of my earnings, stating that their investment in my upbringing and education entitles them to share in my success. The email included an itemized list of all the expenses they've incurred over my lifetime, including some particularly petty items like holiday gifts and birthday parties, calculated down to the last penny. This move was shocking and disheartening. It's difficult to see the people who raised you reduce your relationship to a series of transactions. Their message didn't just stop at financial demands, it was also filled with emotional manipulations, implying that if I didn't comply, I would be responsible for their impending financial ruin, including the potential loss of the family home. They suggested that by not helping financially, I would essentially be turning my back on the family and everything they stand for. Meanwhile, my sister has taken a different approach to apply pressure. She has started a campaign on social media, posting vague but pointed messages about the importance of family support and unity during tough times. These posts are clearly directed at me, painting her as the struggling sibling who is being unjustly neglected by her more successful sister. This public display of our private issues has not only strained our relationship further, but has also involved the wider circle of our extended family and mutual friends, some of whom have begun to message me privately, urging me to mend fences and help out. The combined pressure from both fronts is immense. My parents' attempts to guilt-trip me about the family home and my sister's public appeal to familial duty have made it incredibly difficult to maintain the distance I need for my mental health. However, these tactics have also reinforced my belief that the boundaries I set were not only necessary, but essential for preserving my autonomy and well-being. In response to their latest maneuvers, I took several days to gather my thoughts and consult with a few trusted individuals, including my partner and a close friend who has some legal expertise. Their insights were invaluable in helping me craft a response that was firm, yet respectful. I replied to my parents' email with a detailed message of my own. I acknowledged their feelings, but reiterated that my financial independence is just that, independent. I explained that while I am grateful for their role in my life, I am not an investment, and it is unreasonable and unfair to treat me as such. I also addressed the issue of the family home, expressing sympathy for their situation, but clarifying that I am not responsible for their financial decisions or the outcomes of those decisions. Regarding my sister's social media campaign, I decided to reach out to her directly through a private message. I asked her to respect our privacy and keep our financial disagreements off public platforms. I expressed my willingness to discuss our issues privately, but made it clear that I would not engage in a public debate over personal matters. To safeguard myself against potential legal threats hinted at by my sister in her messages, I consulted with a lawyer. The lawyer confirmed that there is no legal basis for my family's claims to my earnings and advised me to keep thorough records of all communications with them. This step, while precautionary, provided some peace of mind that I was on solid ground. The emotional toll of these developments cannot be understated. Each email, message, and post chips away at the resolve I've built to protect myself from their manipulative tactics. It's a constant battle to remind myself that I am not responsible for their happiness or financial stability. Through all of this, the community here has been a source of strength. Reading your messages and comments helps reinforce that I am not alone in this struggle and that others have faced similar challenges and come out stronger on the other side. As I move forward, I am focusing on maintaining the boundaries I've set and continuing to build a life with people who respect and support those boundaries. It's not easy, and I know there will be more challenges ahead, but I'm committed to standing firm in my decisions. Thank you again for all your support. It truly makes a difference. I welcome any further advice you may have on dealing with family financial entanglements or maintaining emotional health amid familial pressure. Your insights and stories have been a beacon of hope and guidance. Last update. Today I'm writing what I intend to be my last update on here regarding my family situation. After much reflection and enduring increasingly invasive behavior from my family, I've made some definitive decisions about how I want to move forward. Since the last update, things escalated to a level I could no longer tolerate or manage through mere boundaries and firm emails. My family's actions turned from manipulative demands to outright harassment. The constant pressure, the invasive communications, and the emotional blackmail reached a point where my daily life and mental health were severely impacted. I realized that these were not mere oversteps. They were clear violations of my privacy and peace. In response to their unrelenting behavior, I took several decisive steps to protect myself and secure my future away from their influence. After consulting with legal professionals about the ongoing harassment, I made the tough decision to file charges against my family members. This was not a decision I took lightly, but it was necessary to formally address the severity of their actions and to legally prevent further harassment. The legal process was draining and emotionally taxing, but it reaffirmed my belief in protecting my well-being above all. Along with taking legal action, I made some significant personal changes. I've changed all my contact information, phone numbers, email addresses, and moved to a new location. The necessity of erasing my old contact details and physically relocating was a drastic measure, but essential in ensuring that my family could no longer reach me directly and disrupt my life. This entire journey has been one of the hardest periods of my life. Cutting ties completely with my family was a monumental decision filled with mixed emotions. Despite the relief of removing myself from a toxic environment, there's a profound sadness in acknowledging that my family relationships had deteriorated to such an extent. However, the support from friends, my partner, and professionals, along with many of you here, has been instrumental in helping me navigate through these changes. Moving forward, I am focusing on rebuilding and reinforcing the positive aspects of my life. I am investing time in relationships that are supportive and reciprocal, and I'm taking steps to enhance my mental and emotional health. The freedom from constant familial turmoil has already brought a new sense of peace and stability to my life, and I'm optimistic about the future. I wanted to share this final update as a closure for myself and as a thank you to all of you who have followed my journey, offered advice, and shared your own stories. Your support has been a beacon during my darkest times, and I'm profoundly grateful. As I close this chapter, I encourage anyone facing similar familial challenges to prioritize their well-being and seek out the resources and support systems available. Remember, it's okay to step away from relationships, even familial ones, that cause harm or distress. Taking steps to protect yourself is not an act of selfishness. It's an act of self-respect. Thank you once again for everything. I hope that sharing my story has helped others in some way, as your support has certainly helped me. Wishing everyone strength and peace on your own journeys.